Well, hello. We have a few people who will join our webinar, so welcome to the OPWL post-conference chat webinar. And my name is Yonnie Chyung, and I am a professor of the OPWL department, Organizational Performance and Workplace Learning department in the College of Engineering at Boise State University. And this is the first time we offer this type of webinar, so I'm very excited about that. And as you may know, many people, many OPWL students and graduates, as well as OPWL faculty members, have presented their work at conferences and published their papers and stuff like that. For example, during the last semester, this very last semester of this year alone, I think at least that I counted, 17 of us, including students, graduates, and faculty members, presented their work at professional conferences such as, one of them is ISPI's Performance Improvement Conference that they do every year, and E-Learning Guild's Learning Solutions Conference too. So some of us who presented at those conferences last semester, we got together and say, hey, why don't we have this post-conference webinar, just chat about it. So we agreed to do it. Not all of them who presented there could join us today, but 7 of us got together, hey, we are available today, and then let's do it. So here we are. So I'm the organizer, and 6 other people who will share their thoughts and experiences are, and first, Megan Kennedy, a current OPWL student from Boise, Idaho, and Kristina Goff from San Diego, a current student, Sabrina Johnson, a current student from Seattle, Ieva Swanson, an alumnus from St. Louis, Katherine Roberts, another alumnus from San Antonio, and Roberta Dombrowski, a current student from Boston. Roberta presented at the Learning Solutions Conference, and the rest of us presented at the ISPI conference last spring. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 3 topics broadly. So first one is, why did I decide to present at a conference? And second one is, what did I get out of the conference while presenting and attending other sessions? And third one is, what suggestions do I have for other people who are interested in presenting at a conference? All right, so let's start with the first one. Why did I decide to present at a conference? And why present versus attend without presenting, and what's in it for me professionally and personally, and for my organization? So why don't we start with Ieva Swanson?
Hey there, thank you, Yanni, and I have to say I'm really excited to be back together with my co-presenters from the conference this year and to see everybody who had the time today to join the webinar. So thank you very much for coming. You know, I'd love to get together with people, but I think that my story is as much about how I wanted to present at a conference as it is why I wanted to, because, I mean, I think you already know that it's a great opportunity to sharpen your skills, and you know, it's a great opportunity for building your personal brand. Those are kind of the things that hit me as being on the surface real obvious reasons for why I'd want to be there. But you know, I've always been active with ISPI, and they've always encouraged me to go, and as good as all those reasons are, those reasons were not compelling enough to get me to sign up and go to the conference and present there. I've presented a lot in my career, but never at a conference. I had a lot to learn about presenting academic content, and honestly, I didn't think I knew enough to be able to do this on my own the first time. So I wanted to present this year because I knew I could go with people from OPWL, and they'd help me learn what I needed to know to succeed on my first time out there. So we planned together, we practiced together, we gave each other feedback. And that's really, you know, why I decided to present at a conference this year. And it's a real pleasure to meet people in person that you work with. This is my colleague Jay from my own company. I found out only a couple weeks before I presented that he was also presenting. We'd never met in person before because he works in Dallas, Fort Worth. And also very exciting for me, I got to meet a classmate of mine from my first ever OPWL class from January of 2014. And that's Katherine Roberts. She co-presented with me. We've taken classes. We prepped our portfolios and published papers together. So without further ado, here's Katherine Roberts to tell you why she wanted to present at ISPI this year.
All right, so Katherine.
Thanks, Ieva and Yanni. This was such an extraordinary opportunity to be able to go to a conference and present, and sharpening my presenting skills was something that has been on my list of things for me personally to do for many years. And when this opportunity came up, it definitely was a moment for me to step outside my comfort zone. And having the people, Ieva and Megan and Yanni, there with me to help me get more comfortable, to understand what I needed to be able to do to present academically, as Ieva mentioned, they were just extraordinary. So professionally, this helped me grow because I don't present a lot, unlike Ieva. So it helped me prepare me to present like in my own workplace. And the other opportunity it gave me was to network with other people, other professionals there in the field, other people that do instructional design or performance improvement, and to expand, you know, the possibilities and the things that are out there that I didn't know about.
Okay, Megan.
Hi, thank you, Ieva and Katherine. So for me, deciding to present at a conference, it really wasn't anywhere on my mind. I had interest in going, but until I had actually been reached out to by Yanni with the opportunity, I don't think I would have considered it on my own. So a big thing was taking advantage of the opportunity provided, being able to stretch those experiences and do things that, you know, as a student, feeling very green in the field and knowing that there were going to be experts and people who I had read research from, you know, kind of having that lack of wanting to do it because I felt like, well, what do I have to offer? But having, you know, alumni and professors, you know, like Yanni and Ieva and Katherine kind of back and support that, it was great to step outside that comfort zone and just take the opportunity that was provided there. I do feel like presenting also made it a deeper, more meaningful experience. You know, you weren't able to just attend the conference at a surface. When you're presenting, you're really engrossed in it and really invested, because not only are you there for yourself, you're there to give back to other people, and it kind of set that mindset of, you know, not only what can I take from this conference, but what do I have to give to others. One of the awesome experiences I had at this conference as well was similar to how Ieva and Katherine were able to work together after working in OPWL. I got to meet one of my classmates who I had worked on projects with but had never met in person. So next up is Kristina.
Thanks, Megan. Yes, that is actually one of the best parts about presenting at this conference and that was something that I was interested in, is online learning through Boise State, I have found, has been exceptional. And I've taken several certificate courses through other online programs here in San Diego with USD and UCSD, and they were good, but this program is pretty remarkable in my opinion. And I really wanted to get a chance to meet these people who I had collaborated with and worked with, like Megan, on previous classes. And that was invaluable because I already felt kind of part of a community within all of our own struggles of being in this program and getting a master's or a certificate. And it was really cathartic talking to people in person to find out that we all have really similar struggles and we all deal with a lot of the same stuff. So that was really special. The other thing too was, I'm totally brand new to this. My background is in biology, and when I was approached by my professor to present with her, I just figured, you know, go big or go home. This is my chance to really dive into this community and figure out that this is really the right choice and the right direction I wanted to go. And I was completely just absorbed and enthralled in this community and this industry. And it really solidified things for me, knowing that, yes, this is exactly where I want to be and what I want to be doing. And just like everyone else says, it gets you out of your comfort zone for sure. It is a challenge. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and you're meeting a lot of really, really smart people. We had students all the way to folks that have been in this business for 60 years and they have a ton of experience. And one thing that I thought was really interesting, though, is presenting as a student, you don't think that maybe what you have to say is, you know, earth-shattering or all that interesting. However, I did find there were multiple professionals that after my session had said, you know, I took away some really good stuff from what you said, and thanks for that reminder. And, you know, that I think was really valuable too. So if you feel like what you have to say or present isn't going to be amazing, you'd be surprised what you're capable of sharing with folks.
All right, thank you. So, and then here comes Sabrina.
Hi, everyone. I felt the same as Kristina. It was completely energizing to be a speaker rather than a presenter. But if you'll notice from my background here, I'm from the Seattle area. So one of my biggest motivations for being a speaker was two of my motivations actually was to have a resume booster and to make local contacts. I had heard through Joanne that there were several OPWL alumni in the program, but I've never met these people, and I thought, what a great way to build a little clout, because I don't technically have a full-time position at this moment in the field of OPWL. So I need to do things to boost my resume a little bit, to be honest. So speaking at this conference, I felt like was something that was great because you're speaking from an academic standpoint and from an experience standpoint, because we were speaking about a project that we had done for our class. And one of the great things I'm sure you guys have noticed through this program is you can take projects from work and also get a grade for them. And so that really gives you a little bit of clout and a little bit of experience that you can tangibly show. And other things that motivated me was I really wanted some experience speaking from my portfolio defense. There are a bunch of professors that showed up and watched me speak and helped me to speak, and I'm just going to be that much more comfortable, I'm imagining, when I get to the actual portfolio defense and I see some familiar faces and they know how I work and I know how they work. So it was really, I think my favorite part was really making those local contacts for me. And with that, Roberta?
Thanks, Yanni. Thanks, Sabrina. So on my side, I actually ended up presenting at the eLearning Guild conference in Orlando, and I actually applied to present at ISPI as well, but I had to withdraw because I was just so busy with traveling and work and other things. But essentially, I have been in the field for about 4.5 years, and I attended conferences for the last 3 years. And when I went there, I would watch these presentations, and they were really interesting. And I would always go back to my work and even looking at work in the program, and I'd say, you know what, I don't know why we're not presenting. We really should. There's a good story that we have. So it really essentially came down to that I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. I am completely introverted. I hate speaking in public. So I just kind of filled out applications without thinking about it and submitted it and thought to myself, you know, if it gets approved, I'll deal with it when it comes up. So then I ended up getting those acceptances, which was really surprising to me. I thought I had a story, but I didn't really believe that it would be appreciated or kind of welcomed in the industry and with conferences. So I was really excited when I got those acceptances. I also really wanted to practice public speaking. Like I said, I hate speaking. So it allowed me kind of an outlet to create my personal brand, which I tweet a ton and I write a lot about learning and L&D, but getting my actual face out there and meeting with other people kind of drew me and encouraged me to do that, and sharing my message about what I'm doing personally and my company. We're doing some really innovative things. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all. So, now, this was the first topic. So from the audience, we can accept a couple of questions. If you have any questions for any one of us about this topic. Anyone?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to throw out there that I really appreciate all of you all taking the time to talk about this, because you've hit on something that is one of my biggest hesitations, which is really like, what do I have to offer to professionals? So thank you all for your responses, because they made me feel so much better.
Oh, thank you. Was this Danielle? I see your name, first name only, Danielle? Yes, it was from Daniel. Anyone else? One more?
We've got a question in chat from Ryan.
Okay, so Ryan says, thanks for organizing this event. What is the acceptance rate for papers? Now, I'll try to answer this, but I don't have an answer for that actually. So it really depends on, I think, year by year too, but it depends on how many people submitted the proposals and how many they have slots for. I can tell you that based on my experience where I collaborate with my students and graduates, I never get rejected. So if you team up with other people who have some experience, even though you're the first timer, if you get some advice from the faculty members or other people who have presented there before you submit your proposal, I think you'll be accepted. That's how I see it. Is there anybody else who want to add to that?
Yeah, this is Roberta. I know that the e-learning guild sets aside a certain percent of people that submit proposals. So I think they do like 30% of all of the people that apply. They save for newcomers and people who have never presented before. They set aside a certain amount for like different topic areas too. So I think there is a high probability if you apply that you'll get accepted in one of the categories.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to just answer the last question, one more question. What is the average audience size for that? Wow, it's well, it used to be like more than 1,000 and a lot. It started reducing a little bit recently, but back up. Hopefully, we hope that they're going to back up and have a more audience there. So it depends on the conferences and the organization, and then year by year. So I'll keep those questions, and then we'll move on to the second topic, and then we'll get back to the questions later on. So what did I get out of the conference? So Ieva?
I'm laughing because it sounded like, why did I get out of the conference?
Well, yeah. Why?
And it's also kind of funny that you'd think my answer to this question would be similar to, why would I present at a conference? I presented at a conference to help build my personal brand. What did I get out of it? My personal brand was enhanced, but those are kind of business case reasons, and we talked about our human connection reasons as being really, really compelling to us, and I really did get all of those things out of it, but there are these unexpected side benefits that maybe aren't so obvious. I like to give back, and I hear that my fellow presenters saying the same thing, and Megan and Kristina said so, and I know the others feel this way. I like to problem solve, and I just kind of discovered that pretty much everybody else is interested in giving back and problem solving. So there were people that I'd never met before who sat down with me to chat, and they wound up helping me with resources in ways that I really just didn't expect. So for example, I was attending a session, and there were some really interesting questions and comments coming from one member of the audience. And I guess it's leading by example. When you're presenting, people ask you questions, and you expect that. And then when you watch a presentation, it's okay for you to ask the presenter a question. But here's somebody in the audience who's asking a question, and I think, it's okay for me to just go up to this person and say, I want to talk more to you about this. This is really interesting to me. And it was just a great avenue for kind of breaking out of the mold of presenter and audience and into these side conversations. So it turned out that this woman that I approached had an answer to a problem that I was looking to solve at work. And she sent me to her organization's webpage for a free resource. Now, I work at a brokerage, and she works for an NGO. And as you know, if you've taken Dr. Chyung's evaluation class, you know that she draws from the Kellogg Foundation and pulls up their program logic model, and that is a contribution from sort of the world of nonprofits that has great crossover into corporate America. But we don't always get those resources across to one another, you know, and so this is kind of a great breakdown between different types of industries and organizations that I was able to achieve just by being at this conference. So like I said before, I was lucky to meet with people that I work with all the time, like pictured here, the ISPI BABS board members, and of course with Katherine. So here she is again to tell you what she got out of the conference.
Thanks, Ieva. I have to say, after it was all over, I had this overwhelming sense of a job well done. It went extremely well. I got up there. I didn't break down and start crying or blubber like an idiot. That's what I was afraid of doing. I was afraid of disappointing Dr. Chyung and my other co-presenters, but I felt like I was prepared, but I was terrified. And that's not like me, but I just felt so great after it was all over. I wanted to like high five everybody. So, and the other part of it is I got lots of ideas about, you know, performance improvement type things that I could take back to work. And again, networking with other people. And I mean, if you end up in the profession that I'm in, doing a lot of instructional design, the fight against training fixes everything, and so you're with other people that share that pain with you, that you deal with on almost a day-to-day basis, and the networking piece, and probably one of the best things about going to a conference, especially ISPI, is getting to meet peers that, like Ieva said, we had started together in Opal and had worked together on things throughout for many years, but we never got to meet until the conference. And then the same way with faculty, as I've gone to ISPI conferences, to be able to meet them for the first time. You know, one of the things bad about going to conferences, I guess, is sometimes you don't know what sessions to go through to, and you don't get to go to everything. So what can you do to get the most out of it? I would plan it out ahead of time on what you want to go to, have backups just in case something's canceled or something goes awry, and attend as many social events as you can while you're there. And by social events, major events, and also just having some coffee and a donut or a pastry during the between sessions and things. Talk to people. Just go right up and talk to people. You get a lot out of it that way. And I think our next person is Megan.
Thank you. So what I got out of the conference was similar to what Ieva and Katherine mentioned, the ability to meet with colleagues that you've worked with face-to-face. And not just people that you kind of recognize their name because you've worked with them in classes and on projects, but also to actually put faces to names of research that articles that you read in the courses. That was something that, for some reason, I guess I didn't anticipate that. As you're working through the courses and you read these articles and you hear these names, it didn't dawn on me, and I was a little starstruck to be like, oh my goodness, you're standing right in front of me, and I've read your research, and you almost feel like a superhero, and only people at this conference would have that reaction. Everyone else is probably like, this is just an ordinary person. But to us, it's meaningful because we know their work. There's also that overcoming the challenge of presenting and feeling competent. A lot of us had mentioned that prior to the conference, we felt like, well, what do we have to offer? And then going and presenting and seeing the audience's reaction and having them come up to you afterwards and telling you what they got out of it was a really big confidence boost and made you feel like, wow, I have things to offer to this field, and it was very energizing. It's almost like it kind of resets you, especially with it kind of being right in the middle of a semester where you kind of get that mid-semester or right, halfway through your degree or anything. It re-energizes you and helps you kind of want to push harder and keep going. What I didn't get out of the conference, and I'm sure this is similar with most conferences, is you kind of see all the sessions and they all sound interesting and you want to go to them all, and inevitably 10 of the sessions you want to see the most are all at the exact same time. So solution to that is keep going, and over time you'll probably be able to gather that information. To get the most out of conference, I recommend immersing yourself. Just like Katherine had said, go to the social events. You could be a complete, stranger as far as to these people, but I never had an experience that anyone would turn me away or not want to discuss. But it was usually the opposite. You know, you sit down at a table with people you didn't know, and within 5 seconds they're asking you, hey, what do you do? What are your interests? And then you'd have these connections and these meaningful conversations. Kristina, up to you.
All right, thank you. So just to reiterate, meeting everybody face-to-face is wonderful. I once read perfect practice makes perfect, and I think if you are trying to perfect public speaking or just communicating your thoughts and your ideas and your visions to others in a professional manner, this is a wonderful way to get that perfect practice because you're going to be challenged with a lot of exceptional questions, some that you may not even know the answer to. And I know I sat in on sessions, and even my session, there were a couple hot questions that, you know, they're a little overwhelming, but I think it really prepares you for thinking even more through your own processes. It also makes you, you know, rethink your own design, and so it's a really great growing moment as well. The diversity of backgrounds was also really neat. I sat in on what was called speed mentoring session, which was like speed dating, but instead you are networking at a table with various people on a timed an amount of time. And I got to meet all these different people who came from all kinds of backgrounds. So, you know, in my industry, people go into the zoo and they either be a zookeeper because they want to work with animals, or they have to be a vet. But there's so many other things out there. And so this ISPI conference really showed me how much diversity there is out there in human performance technology, which was great. And then the locations were awesome too. If you haven't had a chance to travel, this is a really great way also to kind of have an excuse to go places. Seattle is an incredible city. I've been there before. I love it. It's wonderful. I highly recommend it. And New Orleans I've also been to many times, and that's where our conference will be next year. And I definitely want to try to go because it's just wonderful. And you get to meet these different cultures and people, and it's great. Misses, of course, like everybody else said, not enough time. The other thing too is I noticed a lot of folks did not write speaker notes in their PowerPoints, and so ISPI did try to provide us with PowerPoints for sessions that you missed, which was good. However, there was nothing indicating what was talked about, so it was kind of a lost opportunity in my eyes. So definitely, if you do present, put the speaker notes on there. And on to you, Sabrina.
Thanks, Kristina. What did I get? I got also a huge sense of accomplishment. I've done speaking and presenting for, you know, just for my work team, but nothing on a grand scale like this. So it was really something to be celebrated. Once I was done, I actually went and got myself a cocktail right after it, so it was pretty great. And what else did I get out? So business cards and contacts. So I got a ton of business cards. This will be in one of my tips, and it was a tip that Roberta had actually given me, but to share your business cards and collect business cards, because these, you never know, these people could be contacts that could be getting you your next job. Another thing I got out of it is feeling part of something that's bigger than myself. So sometimes when I sit here, I work from home also. So when you're working from home and when you're doing school from home, you really feel like this, you're on an island and there's no one around you. And so it was just nice to see that, you know, the theory that you're learning, yeah, you got to meet, and not even meet, and see people talk about, you know, the theorists and the researchers that we've been reading about. And it was really neat because sometimes in this program you just get so overwhelmed and it's like, is this the right path for me? It's like, oh shoot, you know, did I make a wrong decision? But it really impressed upon me that this was in fact the right decision for me in the direction of my career, and just seeing so many different things that you can do with OPWL. I had no idea that there were so many different avenues that you could take. What did I not get? Unfortunately, there were 2 sessions that were canceled the last minute. So again, that's just a timing issue and just something I couldn't control. And how to make the most out of the conference, network and participate in those events. That speed, I did also the speed mentoring, and it was on a whim and it was great. Roberta?
Thanks, Sabrina. As usual, you're pretty much my spirit guide, and I can definitely agree with you on a ton of the points you made. And one thing that you did mention is that you're kind of on an island by yourself. I am a team of one right now within my organization, so the biggest thing that I really got was confidence. Not only within the work that I'm doing, but kind of like you were saying, whether this path is right for me on a daily basis. I'm kind of confronted with like, oh, am I doing the right thing? Is this something that, you know, I think I have a name for myself in the industry. So that was really great to kind of get the acceptance with everyone there. I got to engage with a ton of others in the industry. Right after I got done, like Sabrina, I got a drink, a cocktail. It was really nice. I had people coming up to me afterwards asking me questions. I got a dinner invite actually to sit down with Megan Torrance, who runs Torrance Learning, she's a huge name in the industry, and that was really awesome to meet with her and get perspective about the industry and stuff like that. I was able to share kind of my lessons learned and best practices, and I did a Q&A session and hear from other people in the industry. I got, with the e-learning guilds, if you apply to present, you get free conference attendance. I just had to pay my transportation, and my company paid for that, and my hotel room, so that was really great. So I was able to kind of attend the conference. It was 3 days long on my own when I was not presenting, and learn best practices and everything like that. I also was very grateful that my company paid for a pre-conference workshop, and it was talking about how to incorporate user experience within learning design, which directly relates to my job that I just moved into 8 months ago. So that really increased my confidence as well, because I've been wondering if I'm doing things correctly or if I'm going crazy. But yeah, so I'd say confidence was a huge thing for me.
All right, thank you. What we're going to do is we'll skip the topical Q&A just for this one, but we'll directly go to this last topic, and then we'll have more time for Q&A at the end. I think it's better. So last one is, what suggestions do we have for others who want to present at a conference next year? So how to start, and what topics to choose, and how to collaborate, and things like that. So Ieva?
This is like maybe the final round of conference Jeopardy, Yanni, you know, like what I think of as the most serious question. You know, if you were going to do this, how would you go about doing it? And as you can see here, I co-presented with Yanni and Megan and Katherine, so we got to help each other answer this question. And, you know, we had been working together already on a series of papers, and so we wanted to bring our best material forward. We had a really, really deep dive into the material that we were going to present at a much higher level. So if you've ever taken a deep dive into a topic, you know that you have far more that you want to say than you could ever fit into a single paper or a single talk. You know, and we know people, they can't always fit everything they have to say into a single book or a semester-long course. They've got a lot more, right? So when you've taken a deep dive into a topic already, you've got that depth, then while you may struggle to whittle down what you want to say at your conference, when the questions come afterwards, you'll be able to fill in some of those details. And that's, I think, the real benefit of that format. So if you're like me, and you're looking for some feedback while you're preparing a conference presentation, then co-presenting is a really wonderful experience, again, to help you just answer those questions of how do I do this, or what do you think if I do it this way, what kind of impact do you think it would have? What do you think about the audience that we're presenting for? What have your experiences been? So lastly, my suggestion is that make sure you give yourself plenty of lead time, and then this takes self-discipline, but use that lead time really wisely. Develop and practice your presentation incrementally. I think that you'll find that you get a much stronger result than if you sort of let it slide for a while and then pile into it all at once. And it keeps it fresher in your mind. It's easier to dive in and out of it if you touch it more frequently, even if you don't have a lot of time each time you hit it. So that said, with more suggestions, here's Katherine.
Thanks, Ieva. Interestingly, we chose to have 4 people to present with 4, and that's kind of unusual and can have its challenges, but we pulled it off, I think, extremely well, having to the round robin that we did through our topics. But if you've got something that you want to put out there to the community, go for it. But I just say choose your co-presenters carefully. It's, you know, how the old saying goes, if, you know, you can't soar like an eagle if you're surrounded by turkeys. And I think if you look to your peers within the classes that you take, and certainly the faculty, you're looking at a higher caliber, and you're going to want those people with you, because all of you all are going to learn something from each other and be able to take the best of each other and hone that down into something remarkable when you present whatever topic it is. Just don't do it alone. And then when you do decide to do it, plan, practice, rinse, repeat. I can't emphasize that enough. You've really got to plan it out, and you really have to practice. And when you're up there, well, actually, before you get up there, you need to have a plan B and a plan C, and maybe even a plan D when things go wrong. For instance, I was having issues with the remote, getting the remote to change the slides, and you just have to roll with it. But have a plan B in case something goes wrong with the technology, because I almost guarantee you something probably will. And when you're up there, try to have a conversation. That's the big thing. You're not up there to deliver death by PowerPoint. We've all been there. We know what it's like. Don't be a part of that. Talk to the audience. They want to listen to your story. Tell your story about your topic. Make it fun, engaging. Do activities, something to keep their interest and to further the learning. And I'm going to turn this over to Megan.
Thank you. Similar to what Katherine said, practice. That helped to build confidence. It helped to prepare you, because it's one thing to present. It's another thing to also anticipate that people are going to have questions on what you're presenting, and so you want to make sure that while you're up there, you are able to think on the fly of your materials and answer those questions to the best of your ability. A good way that I had to do that was not just to practice, you know, with your peers who already know all the answers and aren't going to think of those questions, but to practice with an audience, family, friends, maybe even fellow students who aren't as familiar with the material, and that can help you kind of anticipate, you know, how does this workflow go, getting feedback from them, and then kind of starting to anticipate where their questions might lie. Having a team to present with was an awesome experience. I think that really helped to boost the confidence of, you know, having that backbone to fall back on, that, you know, if you get shaky or insecure or anything, you've got a team that wants you to succeed. And I think even if we hadn't done it as a team, watching, you know, Kristina and Sabrina, they had the team of us in the audience that, you know, were not only taking what they were telling us, but also cheering them on, you know, knowing that we wanted them to succeed and that they were succeeding. I would say if you want to present with someone, just ask. It really shocked me how open everyone is to each other's needs and conversations, and I don't think if you approach someone and said, hey, I'm really interested in the work that you're doing in this class, or you have similar ideals, you know, do you want to work on this with me? I don't think you would end up seeing a lot of people say no. So feel free to probably ask. And that's a good way to start building those relationships as well. And just know that everyone wants to support you. All right, Kristina.
Excellent points, Megan. Also, I would say too, for the application process, I'll kind of speak to that. So I've presented at several conferences in San Diego, and I've never met an application process so rigorous as presenting for ISPI. And I will say the thing that I very much so valued about it is that it definitely made me really even more so respect who was presenting, because I know they went through that same process. So it's a pretty long application, and there's a lot of support that you need to offer as to why you think what you think, or why you present what you present. I will say, if you're not part of ISPI, which I was not, I didn't know, I mean, I knew of the community, but I hadn't engaged, and I was also newer to this field, a lot of the ways that they want you to relate to the ISPI standards, I was really grateful to have my professor to help me translate what they were asking and what they were saying. So if you don't know how to make that connection of your topic, but you know your topic is going to be really important to share with the community, you know, find someone who does, or ask around, you know, communicate to figure out how you can make that relatable, because that was a roadblock that I hit, and I was really, really thankful for the faculty support that I had. The other thing that I thought was really cool is that a lot of our OPWL students, we are a very engaging group when it comes to presenting. So the talking head model is not necessarily our model, and so really, really try to get your audience engaged. It's kind of ironic to me that we go to these conferences and we know that learning is not best done by talking to people for long periods of time, and yet this is what we do. So, you know, just making sure to get movement involved, get your audience talking to each other. I went to a couple sessions where just discussing with other people on these questions or these scenarios was really, really interesting, and I learned almost more even than from the talk of the presenter. So have interaction, have activities, put movement, you know, get your audience going, and I think you'll be really successful. On to you, Roberta. Or Sabrina, sorry.
No worries, no worries. I can't stress enough, though, what Kristina said about interaction. This is not, don't use TED Talks as your model of how you will present. I did that, and there's not a whole lot of interaction in TED Talks, but the expectation at these conferences is that there will be interaction. So as much as possible, interact with the audience. I cannot stress that enough. I also wrote out, this was my first time presenting at a conference, first time really going to a conference in a field of my work and study. And so I wrote a blog post for my company's LinkedIn blog. Unfortunately, it didn't make the publication schedule, but if anyone is interested, I wrote probably about 2 pages of tips and tricks and things I wish I had known about going into this process. And a couple of the highlights to include that are included in the blog post that I wrote is, and things I didn't know in advance is, and I think it's been mentioned in the chat, but ISPI is expensive. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. It was expensive. There's a student break in the rate, but they don't give a break for speakers. So when you're looking at this, see if you can get sponsored by a company. See if BSU has an honorarium. See if there's any scholarships available, anything like that. But if you're not being sponsored by a company, just keep that in mind. Another thing is the time commitment was way more than what I had anticipated. Like Kristina said, I agree. I think the proposal process was overkill. I have friends that are PhDs that present at conferences all the time, and they've never heard of a proposal process this long. And also, know your target audience. So ISPI, I wish someone had told me this. ISPI is a smaller organization full of a lot of folks that have their masters and their PhDs, or they've been in the industry for several years, meaning there's not a whole lot of novices. And then bring your business cards. That's it.
All right.
Your turn, Roberta.
Thanks, Sabrina. So one thing I definitely have to recommend is look early if you're interested at presenting at a conference. The deadlines are usually months in advance. Like, I know that for e-learning, the e-learning guild, if I wanted to present like next March, I would need to get an application in by July this year. So look at what conferences, look at what associations you might be interested in, really look at whether their mission aligns with what you're trying to do. Also, be confident. I know a few of us have mentioned before that we don't think we have that much to share. People would be interested in what we have to say, but I promise you that's not the truth. Think about your own story. Where do you add value in the industry? What makes you different than somebody else? What's some cool tips and tricks that you can share? And trust me, someone will definitely be interested in it. And then also look into working with professors. I know for ISPI, I submitted my proposal with Lisa and she presented on my behalf. You can also look into other people in the OPWL program or coworkers. For my e-learning guild presentation, I found out that one of my coworkers signed up last minute, so I had her present on the work that she actually did because I didn't feel right presenting on it. So, but yeah, those are just a few tips and tricks.
All right, great. All right, so we don't have to focus on this only particular topic, but so we will accept any questions from the audience, and then any one of us or a few of us will try to answer those questions for you. So what questions do we have? So anyone, you can unmute yourself and then speak up. Okay, can you elaborate on the process, application process? So ISPI, I'll just speak briefly about ISPI, but other people will add on to it. So you will have to, like someone says, you will have to look at their website. Right now, I'll just show you, I was going to show you this. It's going to be due August 31st. So you have to know that early now. And then you will think about what kind of things that do I want to present at ISPI. And then if you go to their website, there is a link to the application process. And then you read through the information. And then you will upload your information onto their system. And then you wait for a few weeks, and then they'll come back to you via email and say, congratulations, you have been accepted. And then they'll tell you what to do from that point on. So anybody else to add to that?
Yeah, just a little bit that it's, when people were commenting, this is Linda, when people were commenting about it being a more rigorous application process, it's because they actually want to hear what you have planned. So it's an outline of activities, how long each activity will take, what kind of interaction you'll have. So it actually wants you to think through your presentation while you're putting together the proposal. So you can think of it a little bit almost like lesson planning, only it's presentation planning.
Mm-hmm. And this is Sabrina. Just to add to what Linda just said, you also need to do a case study and create takeaways. That was one thing that wasn't explained too well to me, but if you do have leave behinds or takeaways for the audience team members or the audience, those are also things you need to factor into your timing and prep time.
Yeah, and this is Roberta. As Linda mentioned with the application process, filling out that entire lesson plan actually really came in handy because a few months went by before when I submitted it and then when I had to prep for the conference, and I forgot what I filled out, and having all the information, I basically did all the work up front, so it was really easy to put together like the final slides and everything.
Yeah, and building on what Roberta just said, just like she said, preparing ahead of time was awesome. Also, my professor asked me to actually write out all of my speaker notes in the PowerPoint as we were going back and forth and going through it. And that was really helpful too, because the brilliant ideas I had when I put this together were still there, whereas had I looked at it and thought about what I was going to say, it would have been starting all over again. The one other thing I wanted to add too is that you also have to put in what session type you want to run. And I will say, from a first-time attendee and first-time presenter, I thought an hour was like going to be plenty of time, but don't be afraid to really think about how much you have to say about your topic and what you're sharing, because I feel like I could have gone longer or incorporated more interaction and aspects that would have had more takeaways had I signed up for a longer session.
To that point, I'd like to add that as you add in activities, or if you're doing like the Poll Anywhere surveys, you have to take into account that those take time, and questions take time. And if you're dealing with a hot topic, something where you anticipate that there will be some maybe debate or differences of opinion, you're going to have more questions and probably more interdiscussion within the group that's going to eat up your time as well. So you got to think about that.
And this is Sabrina. On the other side, if you do run short, conference fatigue is a real thing. So giving people a little bit of time back is not horrible.
Mm-hmm. Any other specific questions that you want to ask?
Yonnie, there is one thing I'd like to add. I know that getting up in front of people can be a very scary thing. Even if you feel like you're comfortable with it, it can be daunting being up in front of a lot of other professionals that you may feel like know a whole lot more than you do. But one of the things that you can do if you don't feel like you're ready to get up and present right now is if there's a topic or an area of interest that you feel passionately about, or you feel like that you want to get to let others know about, write an article and submit it to Performance Express at ISPI. I did that a few years ago after my ethics class I had at Boise. It was one of those classes I thought it'd be really boring, and it ended up being one of the best classes that I took the entire time I was there. I felt very passionately about it, so I wrote an article based on my final paper, and it was published. So start there. And that's also a good way you may be able to springboard off of that and turn that into a presentation at a conference. So, just get involved.
Yep, that's a great idea. Great. Start small and then it will grow somewhere. So
Right.
Another question that Amy was saying is that you're interested in exploring developing presentation based on the team project, but you're not sure if your team members are interested or not, or how to focus on the talk. So so next step is you're interested in doing it. You're the team lead, and your client says yes, and then you reach out to the team members, and not everyone has to say yes. If one or two or none, it's okay. If you're only one who presented, that's okay too. But invite team members as much as you can, and then with their agreement, then you proceed to the process. And if you want to collaborate with the other teams, that's also good, or me, that's also good. And the proposal step is that usually if you collaborate with the faculty members, the faculty member will be able to give you some sample from the previous years, and then you can look at the sample and then do your proposal. It makes it easier. And then once you get accepted, and then presentation preparation step will be done among yourselves with the faculty member or some other team members. If you two teams put together, that's what I did last time. From my previous class, I put two teams together, and so it wasn't like one team has to present for a whole 1.5 hours, but two teams split the time. So it was a little less time that you have to worry about to cover during the presentation time. So I did the 1/3 of it, and then one team did 1/3 of it, and the second team did 1/3 of it. So that makes it a little bit easier on you. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to other people or faculty members to collaborate, especially for the first time.
This is Linda. I want to throw out one other idea, which is that you could practice through a webinar. And particularly around team projects where and some ideas you have about what sort of a discussion you might want to facilitate around that could be made available to the OPWL community, like many of the webinars that you see. It doesn't only have to come from someone that you think of as an expert. You can step up to be that expert.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, if you think about how many classes you've been in where you sort of saw on the sidelines some other project that some other team was doing, but you never got to really hear about it, you can provide that glimpse for one another.
Yeah. So I think it is time. Well, 1 hour passed so fast. I wish I scheduled that for another 30 minutes or so, but time has passed. So I think we have to conclude this webinar. So thank you, everyone, and bye.